I legitimately had probably a 6-month period where staple meals included steak, an entire box of mac and cheese, and then followed it up with a pint of ice cream because I was totally thinking like, "Oh, like I'm a power lifter. I need to get bigger and gain weight to be strong." And all that happened was I turned into a fat ass, and that's it.
Buckle up and get ready to smash your health and fitness goals. This is FortitudeRx Radio, bringing you engaging conversations that inspire you to take action and take control. Physical and mental resilience, strength, nutrition, rehab, mindset, and more. We've got the prescription. This is FortitudeRx Radio. Here are your hosts, Tyler Campbell and Les Kais.
All right, guys, so today we are going to talk a little bit about some diet hacks, some things that me and Tyler have done in the past so that we can stay consistent. Recently, I posted on Instagram how over the past year and a half, I have gone from a chubby 200 pounds down to a lean ab vein 180 pounds, and now I am back up to 200 pounds again, but I am not a chubby asshole anymore. I'm actually taking care of myself, and it's because of all of the small little diet hacks that are actually way simpler than most people tend to make them. It seems like we get a lot of questions on how can I meal prep? How can I make my food cheaper, taste better, easier to prepare, so on and so forth. And instead of looking at it like this huge mountain of like, I've got to eat perfect all the time, there's some really simple hacks of preparing your food that make food not expensive, a hell of a lot cheaper than eating out all the time. And it doesn't really take that much time, to be honest. So we just kind of wanted to dive in and have a little conversation about some of the things that we've done because I, on one hand, have done a big drop down in body weight and recomp up to my old body weight. And I'm in a lot better shape now. Whereas Tyler has basically maintained over a long period of time and kind of hovered around the same body weight, but still made good progress at that body weight. So we have similar but differing stories, and it's all because of pretty much doing the same things. So today we just kind of wanted to touch on some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, like Les said, my story is basically that I've been consistent at like a 220 to 230 body weight with somewhat leanness achieved with that whole time. It's not that I'm specifically dieting or bulking or anything like that personally, because I just found a place where I can perform well. And sometimes I might have to increase my calories to meet my training demands or decrease them if I want to lose a little bit of body fat. But I've never done a full recomposition diet. And I think an important point is like the recomposition diet is such a slow process because you're literally trying to get down in body fat and then get back to the same body weight only through muscle or as little fat gain as possible while regaining that muscle. And so people think that like, I'm going to hop on a recomp diet and in 6 months, I'm going to be the same body weight, but more shredded when it took you, well over a year to do that, right, Les?
Yeah, it took me from last February to this July.
Right.
So approximately a year and a half.
Yeah, so it's a long process, and that's part of, some people might have been dieted way down and their metabolism is way down regulated, and they need to get that back up before they even take on a fat loss diet to begin with. So it could be, a 15-month process regardless. Some of these things can be a lot faster if you're already set up to lose fat well and your metabolism is fine and upregulated, if you want to call it that. But other times it just takes a while. But regardless of what you're doing, these things are all based on principles of nutrition that are just truths rather than fads or the new way to do something, which I guess is the definition of a fad essentially. But like, it's literally calories, proteins, and then your output, your efforts with regards to physical fitness. So when it comes to meal prepping things and making it taste good, all that sort of stuff, it's really just following directions. And I don't know how else to put that really, because personally, I'm never going to go and get from like Blue Apron or HelloFresh to meal prep because it's expensive as hell. But I also can just cook the same stuff by looking at the name of their recipe and then just looking up a blog for a recipe and following those directions instead.
It's just like anything else. With practice, you get better at it. So obviously when I first started to cook, it was slightly challenging, but once you realize that, oh, okay, I have to cook chicken to this certain temperature and I have to cook steak to this certain temperature and so on and so forth, you can literally just Google all these things and then just find systems that make it super easy and convenient that you don't really have to think about it much more. We were talking before the podcast got started here, and For me, a little hack my dad told me a long time ago was when you're cooking a steak, if you just cook it for 4 to 5 minutes on high, flip it over, do the same thing, flip it over, cook it 3 minutes on low, flip it over one more time. We're talking like 12 to 16 minutes and it's done and you're good. You don't really have to put any more thought into it. So there was like one simple little system that he put in place for me that like made cooking steak really fast, convenient, and I'm not having to like cut it open and check on what the meat on the inside looks like. Like I just know that it's going to be done. So finding little systems like that and like just consistencies of how to cook food, you can just pretty much season it differently, and you're going to get a lot of variety just by doing that. Now, I will say that we're going to be using the word consistency a good bit. We already have, and consistency is not perfection. I think a lot of people look at consistency as like, this is what I do legitimately all the time. I achieved that whole recomp process over the past year and a half by being consistent, not by being perfect. I've had some pieces of cake. I've had some donuts. I've had a few drinks here and there. But I would say 90% of the time, I am pretty close to perfect. If I have a weekend of travel and I do have to like grab McDonald's or grab fast food, I don't beat myself up for it. It's fine. I'll just get back on track in 2 days when I get home and when I get settled in. So consistency is not perfection. And that's one thing that you need to realize when it comes to like the dieting, meal prepping, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that part of that is like the donuts and the cake sort of stuff is they're treats that are specifically just available to you, and it's fine to do it because you've been so consistent. People often try to make every single meal some sort of treat, like they're going to have donuts for breakfast, or just because it's in the office they're going to have that. When really you're just giving your control away, rather than just saying I'm going to be consistent right now and just not do that. But if you've been consistent, then sure, have a donut. Like it's fine. You shouldn't demonize it either, because that becomes a mental issue of like literal mental illness of obsession and things like that. And it's not useful in any way. You have to give yourself some slack because you've done well. It's not a cheat. It's not a reward. It just is something that happens. It needs to start being this strange, strong system of reward or punishment to you rather than just being nourishment. And that's not to say that food is just fuel, because anyone that says that and is like, well, you should just see it this way, is not going to help you get any results. We know that food is like a religious issue, a social issue, an environmental issue. All this sort of stuff comes together because food is like such a huge part of being a person. But that doesn't mean that every meal has to be that way. It can be like every 10th meal have something that's like, special to you or something. And those 9 out of 10 meals are going to make you get your fitness goals, rather than saying every single thing I eat is going to be this like treat that I reward myself with or punish myself with, and you hate it or absolutely obsess over it.
Yeah, and I've got to say too, since I've been consistent with eating the way I've been eating, which is basically steak, chicken, potatoes, rice most of the time, I actually have found that just I feel so much better eating these things that I do enjoy it more. Enjoying it also comes with like being somewhat decent at cooking it and having a little bit of variety among those things. But you can prepare even those four things 1,000 different ways. Like there are countless ways that you can make chicken and rice or chicken potatoes. Like a couple of different ways that I'll do it is sometimes I'll make barbecue chicken with a potato and then I'll just smash it all up together and basically make a loaded baked potato of just chicken barbecue sauce and potatoes. And then you can also make chicken and rice as two separate things, or you can make teriyaki chicken and fried rice and just mix it all together. And now you have like some homemade hibachi type food. So you can just look up different ways to make a lot of this stuff and make it enjoyable. And the thing is when you do get consistent in preparing your food and making it in slightly different ways, you'll start to feel a lot better, which therefore will make you enjoy the food even more. If you are like overcooking the hell out of your chicken and it's dry all the time and you have plain rice with no seasoning or salt or anything on it, like, yeah, that's going to be miserable. You're going to have to like fight and gum your way through it. So it's okay to have like a little bit of butter and a little bit of salt and a little bit of sauce on some of this stuff. The only time you need to like alienate those things is if you're going to be like a top end high competitive bodybuilder or something. But that's not what we're looking for here. We're just looking for consistency and just better habits than literally eating donuts for breakfast every single day.
Part of it is also that like there's so many sugar-free and calorie-free options of everything nowadays anyway. They're not perfect, but like, are you really that focused on how things taste that you don't you can't have sugar-free chocolate syrup instead of sugar laden chocolate-free syrup or whatever. Like I don't, and there's nothing to back up the whole artificial sweeteners and cancer thing. So we can't talk about that really. I don't know. I think people are definitely making excuses for themselves when there are excuses that are legitimate, but those are all things that you can overcome. So when you can overcome them and someone gives you all the things to overcome them, including accountability and support, and you still don't do it, that literally just becomes a you thing about your mindset and just like, do you want this or not? And it's fine if you don't. Like, I'm not going to judge you for not wanting to get fit or shredded or anything like that. I'm not shredded, but I'm fine with where I'm at. And it's just one of those issues to me of wanting something for, or really needing something, and what your why is and why it matters to you at all. Whether it's, setting an example for your kids or being there longer for your kids or whatever it may be, we've gone into before. It's just, it gets frustrating hearing some of these questions because it's so very basic that if you literally just follow directions on a blog of how to meal prep over an hour a week, you can have all the consistency you could possibly want. And the only thing that comes down to is your willpower and, just doing it. And all that takes is to not have other options in front of you and to not give up your control.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people look at this and have all this anxiety about this and make all these excuses when they could have just used that time to actually just make their damn food. Um, you're probably going to sit on the couch and think about how, oh man, I've got to cook and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. You could have just spent that 20 minutes just cooking. In the past, I've pretty much meal prepped two different ways. The first way I did it was I didn't really have time during the week to cook much. So what I would do is on Saturday or Sunday, it would take me about an hour tops to make a couple of chicken breasts or a couple of chicken thighs, which total meal prep hack, boneless chicken thigh reheats way better than other chicken does. But it would take me an hour tops to get my rice cooker, throw a bunch of rice in it, put salt, put butter, fill it up with water, press a button. That's going to make all my rice for the week. And I literally took 1 minute to do it. Uh, Throw some seasoning on some chicken and some steak, go down to the grill, take about 20 minutes to cook it. Rice takes about 30, 40 minutes tops to cook. Takes me then 10, 15 minutes to chop it all up and put it in containers. And I would have 14 meals prepared within 1 hour of work. Everyone has 1 hour a week to make 14 meals. I promise. If you're saying you don't, then I promise that you could evaluate your schedule a little bit and maybe not spend 15 minutes in the drive-through line and just use that time to actually just go and make some food. The other way I would do it is I would cook dinner, and whatever I made for dinner, I would just make a second serving of it to bring for lunch the next day. This way, all I was doing was cooking breakfast, which takes about 10 minutes maybe, and then cooking dinner, which takes about 20, 30 minutes. And then I would also have my lunch for the next day. So we're talking like 30, 40 minutes total of cooking for the entire day to have all of your food planned. Uh, I bet most people have that much time.
Think about how much time you can save, like you said, in the drive-through, but also just going out to eat in general, not paying waiters or waitresses. All this stuff is just saving money and time to begin with, because you're replacing these meals that you would have otherwise had to make on the spot for 20 minutes or whatever it takes, or going out to get it. So you'd save hours and hours and hours over your life. I mean, just countless. But even if you don't want to do a full week's worth of meal prep, I think that if you can think about if you were to make 8 meals a week, so just practically one plus meals a day of just something other than what you would usually have that's not filled with protein, or it's not healthful in some way, or doesn't support your goals, we'll say. If you just do that, you're still going to be probably decreasing the calories, increasing the protein in a substantial way over the course of a full week, just replacing a single meal each day. So you do that and you're going to start making progress. It doesn't have to be your entire week all the time is this meal prep food and everything, even though you do have these hacks of chicken thighs. For me, jasmine rice holds up so much better in the fridge than any other version of rice. So use that. Potatoes are fine. All this sort of stuff, it doesn't necessarily matter. But if you just replace some of the meals, even 5 meals, it doesn't matter. Just get started on doing this stuff to where you're starting to give yourself some control, give yourself some practice on cooking things, make it good, find out what seasonings you like, and you can start dialing it up from there. You don't have to go full throttle on meal prep the first time you try it, or you'll get overwhelmed and say, well, that doesn't work. just like every other diet that tries to essentially rapidly lose fat for some reason, when all that's going to happen is a harsh rebound into gaining fat again, rather than slowly dialing it up, making it make sense in your life, and then adjusting from there.
Yeah, and two things that can make your life a lot easier with like making food fast and convenient would be an air fryer and a rice cooker. If you can just simply get those two things, you can prepare all of the things that we're talking about super fast, super convenient, and it's not even really even hands on. You literally just season whatever you're making, throw it in those things, and press a button, and you're done. And it's healthy, it's quick, it's convenient. You can even go off and do other things with your time. So if you still like are just like I cannot stand in front of a grill or a stove or whatever, just get those two things. You could make a million different things in those two machines, and they are fantastic and they're not super expensive either. So I would highly recommend grabbing those if you don't have them already.
Yeah, and I don't even season my food when I'm cooking it generally for meal prep. I'll literally do salt and pepper and maybe a base of like onion powder and garlic powder. So like those four things go with every cuisine there is basically. And so I'll do that. And then when the day comes, I then season it or sauce it however I'm feeling on the day. Or I'll do it the night before so that I'm not rushing at all in the morning. And so that gives you the opportunity to take control of your diet every single day as well, so that you're not just grabbing whatever's available. You're literally taking something, putting it together within like 3 minutes at the very most for your whole day, making it taste the way you want it to taste, and then you're good to go. So that's a mindset thing of like making sure that you're marking down in your head that you're controlling what you're eating, so that you now have that fundamental skill of saying, I'm actively, mindfully deciding to eat this meal tomorrow or whenever you're making it, and you'll be much more in control as a result of that. Otherwise, if you don't have anything available to you, you're going to scramble for food, and that's when you just lose control of what you're deciding to eat, because you just have to go drive around until you see a restaurant that looks fine.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I used to do that as well. I would make a few steaks, a few chicken, or a few chicken. I would make some chicken, some steak, some potatoes, and some rice. And I would just simply put all the rice in one container, all the potatoes in one container, all the steak in one, and all the chicken in one, all seasoned pretty much how you said, just like salt and pepper. And then whatever I was in the mood for that day, I would just cherry pick each one and then reseason or resauce it however I please to eat it that day. So you can just like pretty much cook it all plain and then just prepare it slightly later. It's going to take you 3 to 5 minutes to put that together, but it's already cooked. All you got to do is just warm it up. So you have your variety right there. You just have to learn how to not overcook your chicken or steak to where when you reheat it, it's dry and crappy. So that is another little tip is when you are cooking, like have a meat thermometer. Make sure that you're cooking your chicken right at temperature or just barely below it. This way, when you reheat it, it's then good and fresh tasting again. If you're overcooking your food and then trying to reheat it, you're going to hate it. And then you're not going to be consistent. And then you're going to hit that McDonald's drive through because you took one bite of your chicken from your container and you're like, this sucks. I can't eat this. I just have to go get something convenient now. And that's going to kind of set you back too. So just simply just, I don't know, check the temperature of your food, Google what you need to cook everything to. Uh, it seems too simple that I have to actually say this, but everybody seems to overcomplicate this. So just get a few tools that make this all super simple and super easy for you, and use the internet. We have ample information out there on how to cook, so use it to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And let's be honest, like going through McDonald's drive-through at this point isn't even cheaper in any way. You get like a meal and it's like $13 now instead of like four or whatever it used to be. So let's just stop acting like fast food is in any way convenient for your wallet or your caloric intake or anything like that. It's literally just now expensive and cheap food. And when I mean cheap, I mean it's not good quality.
You can get a pack of chicken for like $10. That's going to make you like 4 or 5 meals. And then rice is, I mean, God, I have a 50-pound bag of rice that I think I spent $13 on that I've been eating for like months now. So all in all, we're talking like, I don't know, maybe $2 for a meal of chicken and rice or chicken and potatoes or something like that. Yeah, it doesn't even come close when it comes to money. People act like it's really expensive to eat healthy, but I don't really know where they're shopping because it's really not too bad. Unless you're like trying to get like top choice cuts of meat and stuff, then it's really not that bad.
Yeah, and at the same time, like if you're worrying about that so much of like, yeah, I need to get free range, whatever, or organic, something or other, like you're just majoring in the minors when you haven't even started a game, I guess you could say. Like there's nothing special about these type of foods. You literally just, you need to increase your protein, get your calories right. And like, that's 90% of it. Like I don't want to be like a nutrition coach that's like, why aren't you doing this so well or whatever? But like, it's just so not complicated that if you just do those couple steps first and see where it takes you, then you can say, okay, what am I missing? And do that with a nutrition coach rather than just paying someone to tell you that you're either under or overeating calories and your protein is really low. Like I'm telling you that now, whoever's listening to this, that if your body composition isn't where you want it to be, just change those two things first and see what happens over the course of a few months. And then you'll probably be okay to figure out from there. If you need more help, obviously we're here, but it should be pretty easy.
Yeah, if you don't have like the consistency down and like the really small things that we're talking about, but you're worried about like it's got to be whole foods and it's got to be this and it's got to be organic, you're just stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Just worry about the big picture and the easy things that you can do before you start worrying about like if this has one more gram of sugar than this and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that when things are not going well, you basically need to zoom out and see the big things that you need to do instead. And when things are going well, but you want to keep progressing, you then zoom into these smaller issues. But if you're not already consistent with something, zoom out and you'll see a big blob of consistency that you're missing, obviously. So, obviously, like we said, that in the beginning, we're going to say the word consistent a lot. And that's because that's how diet and fitness works anyway. You can do things imperfectly for years and end up fine if you just do it consistently. That's the whole issue, of course, is that you need accountability and support possibly from that. Some people don't. Some people have this internal motivation that allows them to just go do the thing. Wes, I think that's a big thing that you have really well. I've just been doing it because it's a habit. I just know how to eat and I just do it and it's fine. I even go out, once or twice a week, or I have in the past where it's like, I'm probably overeating in this point in this season of my life, essentially, but it matters so little because of how I'm eating on the other 90% of my time. So
Exactly.
so we have this internal motivation, both of us, that are sort of like different ways of doing things. I think when you set your mind to something, like less specifically, when you set your mind to something, you do it really, really well. Whereas me, I just sort of base it on habit more than like setting my mind to it. But you may have to correct me on how you view these things.
Yeah, I would say that it starts with that mentality of okay, I decided that I have this goal and I'm going to absolutely crush it and I'm like highly motivated like at first, but that turns it into a habit where I I mean, when I first started this whole like I'm going to get super lean and recomp my body weight and stuff, I was perfect for probably a month maybe where I tracked, everything was perfect. Um and once I got 1 month done, I then realized like, okay, I'm not motivated anymore, but all of these things are now habit. So instead of being perfect, I just dropped it back to like 75 to 90% perfect. So I just got consistent with it and it all just became habits. So I forced myself to be super strict to start out until it becomes a habit and then it's just second nature. I'm not like super motivated. I'm not like trying to be the leanest guy in the world or anything anymore. But it did start out that way. It was like, here are my goals. I'm going to absolutely crush them. And eventually that feeling fades away for everybody. But I don't let that, when that feeling fades away, I don't let that just impact my action to where like I go back to eating a pint of ice cream every single night. I just stick to the habits that I built during that like highly motivated time. And I give myself a little bit of like wiggle room. Like I said, it's been 18 months or so of me like actually taking care of myself. And maybe 10% of that time I was tracking and paying attention to every little variable. The rest of it was just all like really small habits. Um, and the same for me, like I go out once or twice a week and eat out. That other 90% of the time, I'm eating all the stuff that we just talked about earlier. So it's fine to still eat out every once in a while, but just don't do it all the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, very simple stuff, obviously, there. I have a question. Were you eating a pint of ice cream every night?
Yes.
Wow.
I legitimately had probably a 6 month period where staple meals included steak, an entire box of mac and cheese, and then followed it up with a pint of ice cream because I was totally thinking like, oh, like I'm a power lifter. I need to get bigger and gain weight to be strong. And all that happened was I turned into a fat ass, and that's it.
No way.
Not to say that like a meal like that is bad, but maybe only do that once a month,
Right.
but not every single night for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't, there's meals where I've probably had like 3,500 calories in a meal or something like that, for sure. Everyone overeats at some point. Like, I think people view these like bodybuilders and all these sort of people who are super lean as like, that's what I have to do to get even moderately lean or lose any amount of fat, when it's just like not at all the case, where most people, most humans that are fit are still eating big meals sometimes that they're indulgent in and things like that, where it's, I don't know, even bodybuilders have their cheat days where they don't even want to eat more food because they have so many carbs to eat that day and things like that. So it just depends on your individual situation, of course. But I think to close out this topic in general is we've given you all these sort of pieces of information or hacks or whatever you want to call them for meal prepping and getting consistent with your diet and things like that. But the question is like, what are you going to do about it? Like, just because you now have this information that honestly, we probably just gave you stuff you already know. And if you would admit it to yourself, you knew this stuff beforehand, you're just not doing it. So now what? Like, what's your plan with this? Whoever's listening to this, are you going to actually start doing these things? And if not, why? And if so, why? That's all I'm going to ask you is, what's the point? And are you actually going to do the steps? And what do you need to get them done?
My best advice would be to listen to this, reflect about it, think about how terrible you are, and then just feel really guilty and give up. That would be my best advice.
That's a good point.
No, but for real, like it really like that's what most people probably would initially do. But don't demonize it. Like I let myself go. I really did. I was not in good shape. I was coaching a bunch of people and totally just I didn't really put any effort into myself. And there was no like magical thing I did. I just simply just stopped overthinking stuff, stopped beating myself up, and just decided, you know what? I'm just going to make some small changes. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't make some grandiose post about it. I just started doing some small things differently, and it added up over time. That's it.
Yeah. I think that basically, if you have motivation at the beginning to like, oh, I really want to do this, it's going to fade quickly. That's fine, though. Like you said, it's going to go motivation to discipline. And then discipline doesn't stay around either. You have to have routines and habits that are built into that as a result of the discipline that happened. You have to allow these things to naturally occur as just human psychology of how we create routine and habits. And those are going to also create your standards for how you eat anyway. You're going to no longer be like, I'm going to constantly eat foods that are highly hyper palatable, we'll say. And because you have that standard of like, I want this every so often, as opposed to all the time. And you'll just end up in a better place because you've had this buildup of slowly building up into it and dialing up things as you progress and get better at doing things. So give yourself some slack, but also just actually do it.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of FortitudeRx Radio. You're officially one step closer to conquering your goals and living your best life. For more info or to connect with your hosts, check out FortitudeRx.com. We'll see you next time.